Hello, I'm Kate Campbell Stevenson. My guest today is Sally Patterson, and she's with the board of the Sewell Belmont House Museum. Welcome, Sally.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
What an exciting event with the Alice Awards that we had here today. You want to tell us a little bit about, from your perspective?
The Alice Award is in its 11th year. It's a ceremony that we do each year in September to honor women who have provided leadership in the continuing fight for women's equality. And today we honored both Senator Susan Collins from Maine, and in addition we launched a new award this year that honored Mika Brzezinski as a leader for the work that she's been doing in terms of helping women get pay equity.
It was a room full of very, very dynamic women.
For the wonderful goodies in the gift bags, and Tiffany & Company for the beautiful awards that we will be giving our honorees today. And our exclusive media sponsor, Capital File Magazine. At this time, I'm going to turn the program over to the president of our board of directors, Diane Chasin-Lipsey.
Thank you, Peggy, and thank you all for being here today to honor Senator Susan Collins and Senator Kirk. We appreciate it and greatly appreciate your continued support of the Sewell Belmont House and Museum. As many of you know, the museum occupies a unique space in the story of women's history. As the home of the National Women's Party and the former home of its founder, Alice Paul, it houses an unparalleled collection of archives and artifacts from the 20th century campaigns for suffrage and equal rights. Our first honoree today is no stranger to the Sewell Belmont House. Susan Collins was first elected to represent the state of Maine as a United States Senator in 1996. For almost 2 decades, she's amassed a record of legislative accomplishments in many areas, including homeland security, education, and health care. Today, she is well recognized for her leadership and her unyielding advocacy on behalf of women, veterans, and senior citizens. Please welcome Senator Susan Collins.
Thank you so much, Diane. It's a beautiful award, and it's one that I very much appreciate. I'm delighted that I'm going to be sharing the award today with Senator Gillibrand, with whom I worked so closely along with Joe Lieberman to repeal Don't Ask, Don't Tell. And it's one of my proudest legislative accomplishments. To receive this award in the centennial year of Alice Paul's historic suffrage march makes it all that much more special. And I want to also congratulate Mika. You know, she's one of these people like Cher, who only needs one name. Mika, as the inaugural recipient of the Voice for Women Award. Congratulations to you, Mika. Day listening to Mika and Joe. I would mention Joe, you know. I thought I'd tell you a little bit about my inspiration for public life. It really started in my home, where both my parents were very active in the community that I grew up in, Caribou, Maine, and also at the state level. While my father served in the Maine State Senate, my mother also served on countless boards, from the University of Maine System Board of Trustees to Catholic Charities of Maine, and inevitably she always rose to the leadership position. Both my parents served as mayor of Caribou when I was growing up. And in fact, my mother and I are the only mother-daughter team elected to the Maine Women's Hall of Fame, and she was inducted many years before I was. So growing up, I saw the value of public service every day, and I was taught that your voice did count. but that you had no right to complain if you sat on the sidelines. As a senior in high school, I had an extraordinary experience of being selected as one of 2 delegates to the Senate Youth Program, which is run to this day by the William Randolph Hearst Foundation. Well, I had never been on an airplane. I had never been to Washington, D.C., and I certainly had never met a United States Senator. And Maine senators at that time were Edmund Muskie and Margaret Chase Smith. You cannot do better than that. And Ed Muskie did what I do every single day. He very kindly spent about 5 minutes with me, took a quick picture, and sent me on my way. But Margaret Chase Smith invited me into her personal office. I remember the green walls for some reason. And she sat and she talked with this 18-year-old senior from Caribou, Maine for nearly 2 hours. And when I think of how busy our schedules are, I just cannot believe that she took that kind of time with me. And she never once talked about what it was like being the only woman in the Senate. Instead, she talked about what it was like being a senator. She talked about her work on the Armed Services Committee. She talked about a host of issues. Most of all, she talked to me about her famous speech, her Declaration of Conscience, in which she stood tall against Joseph McCarthy. And she was a freshman senator at that time. And she gave me a signed copy of her Declaration of Conscience. And I regret to tell you that since I was a teenager, I have no idea where that is today, which I could just kick myself about. I remember when I left her office being so proud that she was my senator. And I also remember thinking that women could do anything. Now keep in mind that this was back in 1971. And back in 1971, a lot of us didn't realize that women could do anything and be whatever we wanted to be. In fact, I remember once when I was a young girl talking to my dentist in Caribou and telling him that I thought maybe I'd like to be a dentist someday. And his telling me, and I'm not making this up, that women lacked the hand strength to be dentists. As if you're using your fingers to pull teeth. But also, it's so absurd. But, you know, I was probably 10 at the time, and so I promptly crossed off the possibility of being a dentist. Not that I think that was a great loss to the profession, I might add. But I mentioned that because I think role models are so important. And that's why the story of Alice Paul, the story of this House matters so much. And Senator Margaret Chase Smith was a role model to an entire generation of aspiring female public servants. I remember Elizabeth Dole telling me once about her meeting with Margaret Chase Smith and how encouraging she found it. And no matter what state women are from or what their party affiliation, they knew Senator Smith as a leader of intelligence and integrity. So after college, I served on Bill Cohen's staff in Washington, and I started out as an intern during the impeachment summer of 1974, where he was a freshman Republican congressman called upon to sit in judgment of the president of his own party, President Nixon, and he voted for impeachment. Once again, I saw a public servant stand up for what was right, no matter what the consequences might be. So I feel that I've been very fortunate throughout my life in having such strong role models to guide my service in the Senate. And we were talking earlier that one way that I try to give back is I go and visit schools all over the state of Maine. And I'm now up to 183 schools that I have visited. And I want, particularly in rural Maine, for the children to realize that you can grow up in a small town in Maine and make it to the United States Senate or to whatever your goal may be, because this is America. And one of my favorite letters came from this little boy who wrote me after I talked to him. And he said that he wanted to be a rocket scientist. And he knew it was going to be very hard and that he was going to have to study a lot in order to be a rocket scientist. But that he knew he could do it because Senator Collins had told him he could be whatever he wanted to be. And you know, when we have days like today in the United States Senate, it's letters like that that make me so happy that I'm in public service, because I feel like I helped inspire that little boy to reach his dream. I really should frame it and put it right in my office to read on the days like today. My first time running for public office was in 1994, and I ran for governor. Now, you may say, governor, isn't that a little high to start out? Well, fortunately, I had had a lot of experience in government, 12 years working for Bill Cohen. I worked for 5 years in state government as a member of the governor's cabinet. I was head of SBA for New England in the first Bush administration, and I felt I had a vision for Maine. So I won an 8-way Republican primary with 22% of the vote, not a strong position for the general election. And then I got absolutely clobbered in the general election by Angus King, who is now the junior senator from Maine, which shows what a small state Maine is. And Angus and I have a wonderful relationship. There were 4 candidates running that year. The independent won. Thank goodness there was a Green Party candidate, which prevented me from coming in dead last. I was outspent and I made plenty of rookie mistakes. But I've often thought about, was my gender a factor? Because I think there's a big difference still when women run for an executive position rather than a legislative position. And while I am certain I would have lost regardless, even in a highly enlightened state like Maine, I do think gender was a factor. I'll never forget this young banker coming up to me and saying, you know, I agree with your position on virtually every issue, but I just can't imagine a woman running the state of Maine. And I was so stunned. I can't tell you how shocked I was that he actually said it. I mean, it was bad enough to think it, but to actually say it and not be embarrassed about saying it. And he was young also. That also bothered me. You know, you couldn't even say, well, he grew up in a different time. But Whenever a door shuts, there's another door that opens. And I went to work at Hudson College, now Hudson University, a business school in Maine, and ran a Center for Family Business. And since my own family has a fifth-generation small business in northern Maine that's been in our family since 1844, and it's run by two of my brothers now, this was near and dear to my heart. Bill Cohen made his surprise decision not to run again in the beginning of 1996. And immediately I started getting calls from all over the country, I wish, all over the state, urging me to run for the Senate. And no, it was not just my family and friends. It was people I'd met on the campaign trail. And I'll never forget an elderly woman from Lewiston who called me up and told me she voted for Angus, but now she really wanted to vote for me. She felt she knew me better, but most of all, I've been such a gracious loser. And I mentioned that story because how you deal with adversity in life can make a big difference. And when I speak at Girls State every year, I always tell that story. It used to be in the early years, perhaps because you have to get over losing, I always told about winning. And then one year I switched and talked about losing. And all of a sudden I saw all these young faces focused on me and realized that that story meant more to them than the story of my success. Well, as you may know, until this year, my entire time in the Senate was spent serving alongside another ceiling breaker from Maine, Senator Olympia Snowe. And I'm proud that Maine has been one of just a few states with 2 women senators, the proper number of women senators. And we are the only state to have elected 3 women to serve in the Senate for a significant number of years. In fact, when I was elected, you'll find this hard to believe, in 1996, I was only the 15th woman in history to be elected in her own right. There were others appointed, and 3 of the 15 were from Maine. So I love that, and I'm so proud. I mentioned earlier that role models matter, and I think the best example I can give you of that was back in 2008, when the young daughter of my chief of staff asked her father, "Daddy, can boys grow up to be senators?" You see, she had only seen women as senators from Maine. And when I think about it, I'm sure that Olympia's in my path was made much easier by the fact that the entire time we were growing up, Margaret Chase Smith was senator. So we didn't have to prove that a woman can do the job. I do just want to end my remarks by talking a little bit about the women in the Senate. We're now a record 20 strong, and I think it's important to note that we span the ideological spectrum. I just rebel against the notion that women think alike, have the same views, bring the same perspectives. They don't, any more than men do, as you all know. I do think there are 2 differences, however. One is I've seen too many smart, capable women who are ready to run for public office, who talk themselves out of it and have more self-doubt than men do. The best example of that is a story told to me by Lynn Martin, former Secretary of Labor. I think it was in the Reagan administration, but I'm not sure. In any event, she was also a former congresswoman from Illinois. She told me that women feel, in order to talk about trade policy, that they need a PhD in international economics. a man feels that he merely needs to drive a Honda. And I always thought that was a great story, with apologies to the men here. But I do think that women often feel that we're not quite ready. And if any of you feel the urge for public service, I would say go for it. Because we do need to have more women to step up to the plate. The second point that I would make is I do think there's a difference in the style that women bring to public office. I don't mean to generalize, it's always dangerous, but I think women are more collaborative and more interested in getting to results. The women of the Senate get together for dinner every 6 weeks, and as luck would have it, we had a dinner just last night. And that helps to build bonds among us. And these dinners both puzzle and perplex our male colleagues. I'll never forget after one of them, one of my male colleagues saying to me on the subway when we were going to a vote, "I hear you had one of those dinners last night." And he paused and he said, "What do you talk about?" And I just smiled sweetly and I said, "We're planning the coup." But the fact is, getting more women into public office does not require a coup, it requires a commitment. And I will end with the words of Margaret Chase Smith, which she gave to the question of what is a woman's proper place? And her response was everywhere. Thank you so much.
I am so pleased to be here today, and I get to introduce the inaugural Voice for Women Award, which honors an individual who speaks out on behalf of women and brings to the forefront those issues that are newsworthy but also important to women. The inaugural Voice for Women Award is going to Mika Brzezinski, the co-host of MSNBC's Morning Joe, and a best-selling author of 3 books, which include and chronicle her life and career. And I know that I wake up every morning to your show and continue it on Sirius Radio in the car. So thank you so much for being here. Welcome.
Well, good afternoon. It's great to be here. Hi, Theo. You okay? Yeah. I know where your mom was. Was she helping Ted Cruz? Talking? No? It is really an honor to be given this award and to be alongside such impressive women. It's really humbling. And this is such a distinguished audience as well. It's also humbling to even be remotely close to, in the same sentence as Alice Paul, and so many women before us who took on the struggle for equal rights and were ostracized and ridiculed for it, and in many cases much worse. And in many ways, the gains made by them have put us at the table. We're here. And unlike the 2 women before me, I've made some small contributions. And as Kirsten brought up, one was to teach women to know their value, literally in terms of numbers, to get the pay they deserve. And I know that in order to be able to teach women that, I had to actually learn mine in real time. And I definitely came across several roadblocks along the way. It's amazing, I've learned, especially in the business world, how women feel it's untoward to talk about money for themselves. You can talk about it for your family, you can talk about it for someone you're advocating for, you can talk about it for your business team, but when you're talking about your own money, for some reason we actually don't feel like it's the right thing to do. We feel like it's perhaps unattractive in some way. So I'm working to change that. And I made a lot of mistakes along the way, as I mentioned, and I actually documented them in my last quest for equality. And I realized that I had a lot in common with a lot of other women, that we tend to sort of apologize and self-deprecate our way into the room, literally to the negotiating table. How many women have apologized today? You probably don't even know you have. How many of you said, like, I'm so sorry, it's a bad time, or you're not? You're not. You shouldn't lie. And it's funny, I found that there were things that we do that literally start things off the wrong way. And ultimately, we sabotage ourselves. And that's what I look at in this book that I wrote. And in the process of learning my value, I came across some really positive signs too. Imagine a boss that will let you write a book about how unfairly you were paid compared to your male counterpart. 14 times less. Think about that. Just take the napkin off your head. 14 times! Can you think of that? And literally this boss will let you write this book. Completely transparent. And still work there. I still work there. That's pretty good. Imagine a co-host who is with you in the fight. A co-host who would even offer up part of his own earnings to level the playing field. I am talking about Joe. Which ultimately we didn't have to do, because my own ability to give voice to the problem was what needed to happen for the book to have the correct ending, and it does. And as embarrassing and weirdly unconventionally transparent as the story is, countless women have approached me and told me that they've followed my lead and they've gotten raises. In fact, I get approached in airports. Oh, right. Okay, thanks. So, all right, I'll do that. But I do. I mean, all the time, so happy. I had no idea that this would help people get raises, except for the one exception, where we were at Union Square for Obsessed, and this woman comes up to me and she does the whole thing. Oh my God, I read your book, knowing your value, and I'm like, yeah, I know. I can't wait to hear what raise you got. And she goes, and I got fired. It was weird. That was awkward. She says it was still the best thing that ever happened to her. So anyhow, I am, though, immensely proud of whatever small voice I was able to give women in our quest for equality. And there's still more to do, but thank you so much for this award. And it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Is there any last words you might want to offer?
I encourage people to come to see the museum. There's such wonderful exhibits here, wonderful stories that are told, and I think it's something that continues to inspire women every day who come through the doors.
Thank you.